Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab on the Fantasy Football Universe, where my intro always seems to be a little bit louder at 10 o'clock in the morning. Anytime it's early in the morning or late at night and people are still asleep in the house, I'm like, wow, that intro is really amped up. I am Aaron St. Dennis. Follow me everywhere at FF Mad Scientist. Joined today by Matt Mormann at Real Matt Mormann. He is here to talk Baltimore Ravens. How's it going, Matt?
Hello, it's going great, Aaron. Yeah, I had to turn it down a little bit there during the intro. I'm like, you know what, you're right. It is kind of an early morning. I'm Central Time also, so for me, it's 9 a.m.
Okay.
A little bit of wake up. You know, I'm not a coffee drinker, but your intro got me going this morning.
I did one of these last weekend at 9 a.m. and I didn't realize my buddy was West Coast. I forgot. He said it's 6 a.m. and I said, why the hell are you up at 6 a.m. doing this? We could have done it later, but when I first started the intro, I just had off the site that I do my intro videos. I picked one of their songs and I didn't realize, I guess it's something used as a background track in the WWE 2K games. And my kid came in and he goes, why are you playing wrestling so much? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, that song's from wrestling. I'm like, oh, it is. How about that? So I didn't realize the free song that they licensed on there was also a background track from WWE 2K. So I was like, that explains what gets you so amped. So
I'm a big My GM mode player on 2K, so I may need you to play that for me after we're done.
Nice. All right. Before we get into the Ravens here, you want to take a second, tell everyone where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, so I don't have any work. I just have some fun over at the ADP Average Dudes podcast. It's right here on YouTube. You can find it there. But that's pretty much it, though, at the moment. I'd love to be doing more, and, hey, we can do more stuff. But right now, just over there on the YouTube channel.
I think you guys had your own league last year, right?
Yeah, we did. And Tanner Ward, my teammate on this, he helped really fill that out because he's a lot more involved with kind of extra, more communities and stuff. So you were in there and you won, and I had an awful, terrible season. I think it was the worst league. The worst team I had all year actually was that league.
That was my favorite league because someone trash talked me all year, and then when I eliminated him, I trash talked him, and he threatened to murder me.
Yeah,
it was hilarious.
Murder.
That was legit threatened to put a bullet in my head. That was awesome. So I remember talking to Tanner in the private chat because we were doing a lot of collabs at the time, and he's like, "That got out of hand quickly." I'm like, "Yes, it did."
Because I was on a work trip. I travel a lot for work, and so I don't always get to check the chats when they're happening. I kind of have to play catch up. And that day, it's all of a sudden I have 80 sleeper notifications. What the hell just happened today? Everything just broke loose, and I look. I'm like, this guy. First of all, Tanner kicked the guy out before I even knew it. Good for him.
Yes, absolutely. He did. Yes, he did.
I'm not a huge league rules guy. No vetoes. I can kind of go whatever. If someone threatens to murder one of your league mates, he's out of here. He's gone.
It was over nothing too. He had trash talked me all and I forget what I did, but I think I eliminated him. And then I posted the meme of scoreboard or something, and I was expecting him to be like, "Oh, you're an asshole," some witty banter, and I'm like, "Oh, we went straight to OJ. All right, I got you. I see how it is." I'm like, I did not see that escalating like that. I'm like, I guess I just naturally thought we'd have a little bit of discourse there and shit talk a bit, but okay, murder's one way to go.
And it started early. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Nick Chubb when Nick Chubb broke his leg in week 2, and he offered everyone a trade immediately.
Yes,
that trading away Nick Chubb. Right, that was it.
It was the day he went down. It was Monday Night Football, right? And they announced at halftime that it was a torn ACL or whatever, and he tried to sell Chubb to everyone.
And I mean, that was one of the most gruesome injuries I've ever seen. Right? This wasn't a guy who, he got hit kind of hard. His shoulder kind of no. This was you could see what happened.
In a free league too. Free league. And I'm going, what are we doing? But
what are we?
Good times. All right, I guess let's get into the Ravens here. We'll start with the QB room. It's a pretty easy one. Obviously, we have Lamar Jackson backed up by Josh Johnson, Devin Leary, Malik Cunningham. I had some hope for Malik Cunningham, but not on this depth chart because hopefully he never sees the light of day. I actually missed out on Lamar I shouldn't say I missed out. I passed on him on my Scott Fishbowl draft. It was between him and Anthony Richardson for me at the 105, and they were the last of the quarterbacks I wanted. And I'm going, I took Richardson because, shiny new toy with the potential we don't really know. I probably should have played it a little safer, but I'm like, we got a 3,000 person pool here. I'm like, let's just go and hope that the shiny new thing, the what's in the mystery box turns out to be. But what do you think here? So Lamar was QB2 last year, going as QB4. What do you got on Lamar?
Well, I think you made the mistake there of confusing upside with youth, because I think Lamar still has all the upside in the world.
It's very possible.
Right? I've got him as my QB3, and this is for a standard, scoring league, right? A 6-point or 4-point, either way. I've got him at 3. I've got him ahead of Josh Allen, which has a bit more to do with Josh Allen than it really does with Lamar Jackson. This isn't the Bills episode, so I won't go too deep into that. But for Lamar, though, he actually kind of had a modest season for being an MVP. He only had 24 touchdowns, a 5.3 touchdown rate, which is actually below his career average. Typically when these QBs have these spike MVP seasons, it's a big touchdown rate. And that wasn't the case for Lamar. So there is still upside for him to be even better than last year. Nowhere near like the outliers he had back in like 2019, where it was a 9, which was just ridiculous. He also, first year in a Todd Monken offense, I think a lot of us weren't totally sure what to really expect out of it. We heard, more passing, right? Like they're going to open things up. And that did happen. He had his fewest rushes per game since his rookie year, which his rookie year is weird because he didn't start this first half of the year. So it's really his lowest rushing he's ever had on a per game basis as far as carries go. And it was his lowest yards per carry as well, but he still led the NFL in yards per carry. He's still really, really good at it. So even with a little bit less rushing happening, he's still great at it. He had a 67.2 completion percentage, which also came with a top 7 ADOT in intended air yards per pass attempt. So it wasn't one of these situations that you see like a Derek Carr or like a Bo Nix coming out of college where, high completion percentage because it's somebody to dump off the screens. No, Lamar's going down the field. He was doing it well, and he played great with it. In year 2 in an offense, I think it could be even better. The weapons kind of are what the weapons were, and we'll get into those in a second, but he didn't lose anybody of note. Odell Beckham's not of note in 2024, so I don't see any reason why Lamar shouldn't be at worst top 4. If you still want to go Josh Allen, I understand. I think you're crazy for your Anthony Richardson pick. And I love AR, but I don't know. To me, it's a pretty clear top 4, and to me, Lamar's 3 in that top 4.
I don't know. Yeah, in most formats I had, obviously it's Lamar. I think I have Lamar as I think I had him as my QB1 in just regular super flex,
Okay.
So it wasn't that I didn't like Lamar. It's just in this one, for some reason, I just looked and I said, I think I want Anthony Richardson. I don't know. Like I said, it was more for me about, I think it was more of a unique build. I think I was shooting for the moon here, hoping that maybe Richardson just has the Lamar type MVP season. In the end, you're right. It could probably be a mistake. And afterwards I was like, maybe I should have just gone Lamar, but I wanted to try something different here. I don't have any Richardson shares, so I just went for broke, I think.
And part of my point there, too, with Lamar is, yes, he did win MVP last year. He didn't really have an MVP season, though. So, that bullet could still be in his gun for another super high touchdown rate, and for that seemed to still happen. It's not like I'm by no means expecting any regression in touchdown rate, and that's where we often see these QB spike seasons come from. Like, he had a regular touchdown rate last year. So, if that spikes again this year, I think Lamar to the moon. Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to a little more challenging. The running back room, the newly acquired Derrick Henry, finishes RB5, going as RB10, backed up by Keaton Mitchell, Justice Hill, who feels like he's been around forever, Rasheen Ali, the rookie, and Patrick Ricard, who's basically a fullback. I've been struggling here because I have Derrick Henry in Fishbowl as my RB1, and I'd like to handcuff him to at least one of these running backs. I was kind of high on Rasheen Ali, and I also, if I can, I'd like to. I think I might draft all of Keaton Mitchell, Rasheen Ali, and Derrick Henry. I don't really have any interest in Ricard. The one for me that I've been struggling with is, does Justice Hill have any worth in him here? What do you think of the whole running back room from top to bottom, I think?
Yeah, so let's get Derrick Henry out of the way first, because I think it's kind of just simpler and quicker. I am concerned because he's 30. I am also 30, and I can tell you in the last week since I turned 30, I wake up a little bit different now. So I can only imagine what that's like when you're a running back, right?
Dude, I hit 30, and it's like I aged 25 years overnight. It feels horrible.
I have woke up before my alarm every single day for the last 11 days since I turned 30. So I don't know, man. So if that's happening to me, just some dude in Kansas City, what's happening to Derrick Henry right now? So So that's one of my major concerns with him, obviously, is just that age factor. Also, his efficiency ever since the 2,000-yard season has been down a little bit. It's not been atrocious, but it has been down. I just worry the upside's not quite there. He's never been a pass catcher. This Ravens offense doesn't lend itself towards pass catching running backs at all. And so it makes me think that on weeks where he doesn't score, which there should be some touchdowns for sure, but weeks where he doesn't score, what are you getting at Derrick Henry? Right. And so it's a high cost to get him. I don't typically wind up taking him. I think in all of my underdog leagues, I think I've only drafted him at 1. And that's usually because like Kyron Williams is kind of falling a little bit around that range. There's a couple other guys that I have like ranked ahead of Derrick Henry that still just kind of seem to always be there. James Cook is another one that I've been taking a lot of over him. So I don't know. I definitely worry about his weekly floor, even if as like a season long floor. I think it's pretty safe. I do think also, of course, being 30, there's injury potential, right? So let's talk about those handcuffs. I think Justice Hill and Rasheen Ali are both the guys to grab at the very end. I don't know which one. So, Aaron, I can't totally answer that question yet. We got training camp yet to happen, right? It's one of the things I'm really got on my list of things to watch for in training camp is what is Rasheen Ali? I'm really curious. I don't know much about him. He was kind of that level of prospect I didn't look at a whole lot coming out of Marshall and a 5th-round pick at running back. So maybe it's a bit of a blind spot on my part. I'm curious to see what he looks like. Justice Hill, right? He's Justice Hill. He was always kind of a weird fit with this Ravens team. He got hurt a couple years ago when he could have had his big opportunity too. But I think those are both the guys to grab because all that's standing in front of them is a 30-year-old and a guy coming up a late season torn ACL. So I'm not really too into Keaton Mitchell this season. Unfortunately, I love him for the Ravens. I hope he's a big part of the playoff run. But for fantasy purposes, man, I don't know if we're going to see him on the field until late November. And then even when we do, will it be a 4 touches a game, right? He was never a high touch guy to begin with.
The answer for me then becomes Rasheen Ali because you like Hill and Ali. I like Mitchell and Ali. I didn't realize the injury was that late in the season. So for me, I think it was Ali. I don't want to say he's Kyron Williams, but that's the player I thought he most closely resembled was Kyron Williams. I don't know if he'll have necessarily the same impact, but I didn't really. Justice Hill always seemed like just the guy who was there where every time you thought he was going to get the opportunity and really do something with it, he just kind of was average. So I think my handcuff's going to be Rasheen Ali here, especially considering I can get him in the 22nd round. So
for sure on that. And by the way, it was week 15 for the Keaton Mitchell injury. So very late season.
What was it? ACL?
Yeah.
ACL, right?
Yeah. Which we've seen recently that ACL has really been a booger for some of these running backs trying to come back from it. So
yeah,
as much as I love Keaton Mitchell, that's unfortunate. But hey, 2025 sleeper right there.
Yeah, see, and that's I forgot that it was an ACL because that's typically one where he'll be useless this year.
Yep.
Still not practicing. Continuing.
No, and he won't.
Yeah, okay. You've sold me on that one. So the guy I'm taking here is going to be Rasheen Ali.
But throw that late pick at Justice Hill too, though. They're both so cheap, you might as well take the shot on both, right?
Justice Hill. I'm just looking him here. Justice Hill, what do we got? Yeah, he's never really does much. He plays 16 games and finishes at RB 44. He just never really has the touches. So
no, and that's probably just been he couldn't beat out Gus Edwards, right? And so if you couldn't beat out Gus Edwards, are you really going to be able to beat Rasheen Ali even? I don't know. The door's there for Ali, though.
All right. The wide receiving room is kind of interesting. We have Zay Flowers as what looks to be the one. Finished 27th last year, going wide receiver 27 this year. Backed up by Rashad Bateman, Devontae Walker, the rookie out of North Carolina, Nelson Aguilar, Deontay Hardy, and Tylan Wallace. The immediately most interesting ones for me here was Rashad Bateman and Tez Walker. I've got a friend who is hell-bent on Aguilar. Aguilar used to be on the Pats, didn't he?
We all have that friend. Yeah, he was.
And that's why, though, it's a former Patriot. It's a Patriots fan, so... Yeah, he was. That explains why he's high on Aguilar. I am not so high on Aguilar. Like I'm looking at his fantasy finish here, and his best one was 22nd overall, or wide receiver 22 back in 2017. So
I was going to ask what that was.
Yeah, for me, if I'm targeting someone here, like I'm using SFB because those are the drafts I'm in right now. But like Flowers is long gone. For me, the intriguing ones are: am I interested in Bateman or Walker late? Walker obviously goes higher because he's the rookie and there's that unknown upside. Bateman, I've always been higher on. I thought there was some potential here. He just can't seem to stay healthy. I think I might take some shares of Bateman. Like you can get him. I think his current ADP, I wrote it down, is it's like 24th round or 23rd, 21st round. 21st round, you can get Rashad Bateman. And at that point, it's like, well, why the hell not? I'm taking a bunch of unknown players. So,
yep. In underdog for best ball, I seem to always take Rashad Bateman and Khalil Herbert. Those are like the two players at the end of the draft I always just tack on the end there. And for Bateman, I think what I like about him is, right, he was a former first-round pick. I actually didn't think he was that good of a prospect coming in. I wasn't a Bateman guy. I thought he was more of a round 2 guy. But then again, I had Terrence Marshall above him, right? So what do I know as far as that goes? Bateman, though, Odell Beckham had stretches of relevancy last year.
yeah.
And if Odell Beckham at that point in his career can do that, then why couldn't a healthy Rashad Bateman be better than that? Like I said, too, I think with Lamar, second year in the Todd Monken offense, if Lamar passing numbers go up, if that touchdown rate does balloon up again for him, then Bateman should be one of the guys that really benefits from that. I do worry about too many mouths to feed in this offense, which sounds weird because really only like 4 guys matter, but Lamar is one of those guys, right? The pie just gets shrunk immediately because Lamar is going to eat some of that pie. And so I actually have some numbers here on Zay Flowers with Mark Andrews also on the field. Zay kind of looks like a breakout candidate potentially this year, but his PPR finishes last year with Mark Andrews playing weeks 2 through 10 were 52, 35, 50, 25, 15, 28, 29, 69, 88, 28. So a lot of like very useless performances there from Zay Flowers with Mark Andrews on the field. So if Andrews is on the field and Zay can be very useful, how the heck is Bateman going to be useful then, right? If he's the third option in this offense, that doesn't, even though they threw the ball more last year, they still don't throw the ball a lot, right? They're still going to be among the lowest passing offenses in the league.
Bateman's one that is the one that never made sense to me. I get in the years where he wasn't healthy, but last year, like, it just seems like, you would think for a decently high scoring offense, they really only have, as far as targets go, Andrews and Flowers. I guess they had Bateman or OBJ last year, but this just seems like one of those teams where it's like, are they just such a high volume pass offense that there's essentially just only Mark Andrews who has elite value and everyone else is just destined to be meh? And that's why, like I said, that's why I don't have much Zay, because I think if Zay turns out to underperform, it can cost you a lot of draft capital. Bateman, I have more chances or shots of because I know his chances are worse of performing, but he's a throwaway pick in the 20th round, 21st round. Whereas, if he hits and I get a wide receiver 3 out of it, it's free money. If I don't, I drop him after week 3 and I'm just like, fuck it, move on. So maybe this is just such a run heavy offense, but
that's a lot of it. In the red zone, it's a big time run heavy offense, right? Gus Edwards stole 13 of those touchdowns last year. So those are touchdowns that, if a couple more of those would have gone to Bateman, if a couple of those would have gone to Zay Flowers midseason, you're talking about a whole different picture there for a couple of those guys, right? But instead, no, they went to Gus, and they probably will go to Derrick Henry. So
that's what I was going to say. It would stand to reason that adding one of the, like, maybe the best actual runner we've seen in our generation, you would think you're only going to get more run heavy, but I guess it remains to be seen. Next up, we got tight ends here. It is Mark Andrews. I know everyone was high on Isaiah Likely, but he's behind Mark Andrews, so there's not much use here. And Charlie Kohler third. What do you think here? Andrews finished 11th last year, going as tight end 4 this year. I find he's actually a little undervalued. I've had more shares of him instead of taking Sam Laporta, Trey McBride 3 rounds earlier. I'm just like, fuck it, I'll take Mark Andrews. I don't care.
100%. You and me both. I would rather wait a couple extra rounds, grab one of those extra wide receivers, and then take Mark Andrews, right? I'd rather him than Trey McBride. I'd rather, like the value of it versus a Laporta versus a Kelsey, those guys. You're right. He finished as tight end 11 last year. He only played in 9 full games, and he was 4th in PPR points per game, tied with Evan Ingram for that. So he was still really, really good. He had 3 top 3 finishes last season among tight ends. He is still Mark Andrews. Like, there is nothing about his game
it's settled at this point, his value. We know he's the number 1 in targets, and he's going to be the number 1 in targets. Trey McBride was the number 1 in targets last year, but with essentially nobody on the roster. They just added a generational type, not necessarily, maybe he's not, but a generational type receiver. I can't see Trey McBride being the number one. We know Andrews is the number one. It's just it's the way it is. So why wouldn't I take the we know number one 4 rounds later, as opposed to the guy who's likely going to be the number two in Trey McBride? He's the one I'm definitely, I'll take Andrews over for sure, because I just don't think there's any way McBride meets his ADP. So
yeah, I'm 100% right there with you as well on that. And for Isaiah Likely, I'm treating him like a handcuff running back, right? Like if I have Mark Andrews or if I don't, right? If I totally end up punting on tight end and I'm taking, me and Tanner have a running joke about me and Tyler Higbee, because I draft Tyler Higbee every single year except for the 1 year where everybody else was drafting Tyler Higbee. And so if I'm in that scenario, then sure, I'll take Isaiah Likely, throw him on the back of my bench. And if Mark Andrews does get hurt again, Likely showed last year, he's a player, man. I mean, those last 5 games, he finished as tight end 3, 5, 23, 2, and 10. So, look, it's tight end. If 4 out of your 5 weeks were top 10, you're probably a top 5 tight end, right? So I will happily do that. And then, if Andrews survives the first, 2-3 weeks healthy and I have an injury pop up or there's a waiver wire addition that comes across, then sure, I'll drop Likely. But I'm perfectly happy in best ball to go ahead and grab him and be like, hey, look, if something were to happen to Andrews, Likely's a stud, and take that shot because it's cheap. Him and Bateman both are really, really cheap shots to take. And Ali, the Ravens are kind of interesting that way. It's kind of a big picture team look at it. It's like you have these very expensive weapons where I'm kind of worried about a couple of them returning value, right? I'm worried about Henry. I'm worried about Zay. And then you've got these cheap options. Like there's no middle class on the Ravens. It's basically either super expensive or very into the draft. And you can get a cheap part of a really explosive, really talented offense very cheaply.
All right, moment of truth. Based on their current ADP, who's someone you're targeting on Baltimore and who's someone you're avoiding? I think you kind of answered that just now, but
yeah, I kind of did, didn't I? So I think my targets, I'm gonna go ahead and give you both of them because it's the big dog. It's Lamar and it's Andrews, right? Like they're both guys who I have ranked higher in their position than others do. They're both elite. Even like if you're lower on them, they're still among the elites, right? And so if I miss out on Jalen Hurts or I miss out on Mahomes, I'm perfectly happy paying up for Lamar. If I don't, if I pass on Laporta, pass on Kelsey, then I'm perfectly happy paying up for Mark Andrews. And then Zay Flowers, it's not that I dislike Zay. It's just there's so many other wide receivers around him that I like more, right? Give me a T. Higgins over him. Give me a Devonta Smith. Give me Tank Dell, George Pickens. Like, I really like Zay, but, man, that whole cluster of wide receivers, looking at my rankings right now, my tiers, from wide receiver 18 through 37, I have ranked in one tier of guys, and you just kind of have to figure out the mishmash among that tier. And Zay kind of tends to go towards the bottom of that mishmash.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. It's one big tier, and he seems to be towards the end of that tier. All right, let's finish it out with a little bit of fun here. Sorry, I'm writing down my timestamps for some reason. We'll do some schedule projections here. If you don't have the Ravens with at least 13 wins, they're going to be projected to finish second last in the AFC. I just want to throw that out there. We got a little bit of homerism in this series. So I'll name the game. You tell me win or loss. Week 1 at Kansas City.
Well, as the Ravens fan who lives an hour away from Arrowhead Stadium, this is going to be a loss, and I'm going to hear about it. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be unfortunate, but it's a loss.
Well, you're already projected to finish last in the conference. You will be the only team who starts week 1 0-1, apparently.
Are we the only team?
The other 31 teams are all winning week 1. Did you know that?
We're the only team that plays the Chiefs in week 1. Look, if everybody else played the Chiefs in week 1, they'd start 0-1 too.
You know what the funny part is? I think the only other team that they projected a loss was the guy who had the Chiefs. He said a loss week 1 to the Ravens. So you guys both think you're going to lose to each other and everybody else is going to win. So week 2, home to the Raiders.
Now, that one, hey, like you said, homers, we're throwing wins here, controversial wins. I'll give the Ravens a win in this one against the Vegas Raiders.
That's fair. Week 3 at Dallas.
That's an afternoon game? It's at Dallas. I'll go Cowboys. I'm pretty high on the Cowboys again this year. I think that they really do straighten things out.
Week 4, home against the Bills in a night game.
So, I'm down on the Bills this year. The lack of offensive weapons gave me the Ravens on this one. But one thing we want to talk defense. Aaron, the Ravens pass rush, we got to figure something out because 38-year-old Kyle Van Noy came through last year. They're going to need that again against these QBs.
As you see here, we do have the defensive depth chart as well.
Hey.
We don't really talk about it. I have a separate IDP show where I'll get into some of these, but for the fantasy one, we won't bother. Head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com, though, if you want the depth chart. Go ahead, sorry.
I was about to tee you up. I was going to say, Aaron, where are you finding this value and information?
And that's our Ravens homepage. We've got the schedule, offense, defense, and then down here, this will be helpful come actual games. This weather widget I have here, this updates in real time, through the company we do it with. That'll help, especially for me. I'm the kicker guy, so I got a lot of kickers, so I like to know the weather and even, like I said, the wind, whatever, what's going to be a rainy game. So that'll update live. But like I said, if you do want to get into the IDP players here, before we do it on another show, head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com. We'll get back into it, though. Week 5 at Cincy.
Divisional game on the road. I'm going to give it a loss.
Week 6, home to the Commanders.
That's a win.
7 at Tampa.
I am not buying on Baker Mayfield. That's a win.
Week 8 at Cleveland.
A road divisional game. I'll give it a loss.
Week 9, home to the Broncos.
That's a win.
Week 10, home to the Bengals.
Now, I'm going to split this series. I'll go win there for the Ravens.
11 at Pittsburgh.
This will also be a road divisional game, and this is a loss. The Steelers have the Ravens number still, unfortunately.
Week 12 at the Chargers.
Now, this important to note here, that's a primetime game. And as we know, primetime Chargers, that's a win for the Ravens because it will be spectacular collapse at the end of the game, and we will find a way to beat the Chargers in primetime. That's a hardball bowl.
It is. Week 13, hosting the Eagles.
I'll go Philly here. I like what they've got going on again.
Week 15 at the Giants.
That's a win.
Week 16, home to the Steelers.
So this is another Steelers game. Lamar Jackson notably does not play versus the Steelers, so I'll pick Steelers here. I'll go with another L. Steelers sweep the series this year.
Jeez, didn't expect that. Week 17 at the Texans.
And this is where you get the surprise bounce back from. I'll go Ravens in this one. I think the secondary is very important in this game.
All right, sorry, I'm doing a little math here in my head. 8-7. You have them at 9-7 going into week 18, hosting the Browns.
So you got to play Lamar then, and you got to win it. So I'll go with the win for probably first overall pick this year.
Yeah, 10-7. That gets you the number 1 pick, I'm pretty sure. So you may have been a little too realistic there at 10-7. I'm gonna look here. Sorry. I like to do my record keeping here. 10-7. So you beat the Patriots by 5 games. You're 1 game ahead of the Jets, and you're tied with the Steelers. And the Panthers. So it gets you the number 5 overall pick.
Wow, Ravens picking top 5. Does Harbaugh get fired? Do you move on from
completely,
Lamar? Like
completely realistic, yeah. So I would have expected the Ravens here to go because I would have gone. Where's yours? I just wrote it down. What the hell? Okay, so I would have had the Chiefs game you can call a loss. I would have had win against Buffalo, win against Cincy. Their losses for me would have been KC, maybe at Cleveland, maybe at Pittsburgh, and that's it. I think I would have had them 13-3.
Are you down with the Bengals?
Yeah. I'm not down on them. I'm high on the Ravens. So
okay. I mean, I would have a little bit of fun with the Steelers thing there because it is kind of a trope that Lamar doesn't play against the Steelers. So that was just a little bit of fun there. That kind of balanced it out with the Texans win right afterwards. But it's all good fun.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. Before we get out of here, you want to take one more chance to plug yourself?
Yeah. So follow me on Twitter at Real Matt Mormann and on YouTube, the ADP Average Dudes Podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for bringing the number 5 overall pick to the Ravens. I'm sure they appreciate that. If you want to check out any of these, stay tuned. The next one, we don't know because I don't have it scheduled. I think it might be the Giants we do tomorrow. If you want any of these team pages, head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com. Once again, thanks to Matt for joining me. Thank you all for tuning in. Take care, and we'll see you next time.